Hey guys, tonight we sneak through the damp cobblestone back streets of Elizabethan London. You pass dripping laundry lines, candlelit windows, and a smell that's somewhere between raw sewage and cinnamon. The Thames sloshes nearby, moonlight glints off muddy water, and every second person you pass looks like they could poison your porridge. Then, out of nowhere, that smell hits your nose: warm butter, spiced nutmeg, a little too much sugar. You follow it, and what you find? A bakery with secrets stuffed inside its muffins like meat in a Tudor pie. You are not supposed to be here. The bakery is officially closed, but the faint flicker of a lantern tells you someone is working late. You press your back to the soot-streaked bricks, peering in. Inside, a woman, hair pinned back, sleeves rolled, leans over a table, dusting powdered sugar on golden, perfect pastries. It should be a cozy scene, but instead, your skin prickles because you just saw her tuck a parchment scrap into the hollowed-out base of one. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here, and drop your city and local time in the comments. I love seeing where and when you're listening from. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You step into the alley just as the woman turns. She sees you. A flicker of recognition, then a slight nod. No words. She lifts one muffin, places it on a windowsill, and retreats. You wait. 2 minutes later, a tall man with a lopsided hat scoops it up and walks off into the dark. Congratulations, you just witnessed a live-action intelligence drop. Welcome to the world of pastry-based espionage. Back then, in the late 1500s, Queen Elizabeth I sat on the throne. England was buzzing with conspiracies, Catholics versus Protestants, rumors of Spanish invasions, and the constant whiff of betrayal drifting through banquet halls and barbershops. Every whisper mattered. Every letter could doom a life. And apparently, every muffin might hide a plot. The woman you just saw? That is Mistress Ellen Bakewell. No, you will not find her in your standard history books, though historians still argue whether one mysterious Mistress B in Walsingham's secret reports refers to her. But among certain circles, very small, very secret ones, she was infamous. The muffin mistress, the yeast whisperer, the crumb courier. Ellen was not born into espionage. She began as most women did, quiet, obedient, expected to marry well and die early. But after a suspicious fire took her husband, we will get to that later, she inherited his bakery and turned it into a business, and then into a smokescreen. From the outside, it looked like any shop in the Cheapside district. A chalkboard listing plum muffins, lemon sponges, and treacle twists. A soot-covered sign swinging in the breeze. Inside, a maze of false drawers, flour tins hiding ink pots, and a trapdoor leading to a passage that, legend says, led out behind a butcher's stall 2 streets away. You might wonder, why muffins? Why not books, hats, candles, or the old classic, carrier pigeons? Simple. Muffins were warm, widely loved, and very rarely questioned. A basket of them could pass through markets, palace gates, and port docks with no raised eyebrows. And unlike pigeons, they did not poop on royalty. But this was not amateur hour. Ellen's muffin messages were not scribbles wrapped in crust. They were layered codes inside ciphers. Some had false bottoms. Others used poppy seeds to mark letters in a pattern readable only if you knew the cipher wheel. A few even used a bitter almond oil that turned invisible ink visible when warmed slightly, say, by placing the muffin on a windowsill for 5 minutes. Yes, really. Of course, this was also the golden age of English spying. Sir Francis Walsingham, Elizabeth's ruthless spy master, ran a network that stretched across Europe. He sniffed out Catholic plots like a bloodhound on espresso. Torture, bribery, intercepted letters. Nothing was beneath him. And somehow, Ellen operated right under his nose. Now here's where it gets interesting. Historians still argue whether Ellen worked for Walsingham or against him. Some believe she was a double agent. Others think she was entirely freelance, loyal to neither crown nor pope, but only to herself, and possibly to a cause we will uncover later. As you trail her through the flickering streets, you start to piece it together. She does not dress like a noble, but she speaks like one. Her customers include both commoners and men in fancy cloaks who avoid eye contact. There is a rhythm to her deliveries. Every Wednesday morning to the docks, every Friday to the apothecary, and once a month, a basket to the palace kitchens. One night, you catch her in the act. She slides a coin across a table in a quiet tavern, and a man hands her a small pouch. Inside are not coins, but crushed walnut shell dust and goose quills, writing tools. Another time, she visits a printmaker, not for flyers, for symbols. One-time cipher keys, hidden in woodcuts of saints and mythical beasts. But it is not just baked goods and parchment. There is danger. You sense it in the way she checks her locks, the slight tremble in her fingers when someone knocks twice on her back door, the way her apprentice flinches when the church bells ring after dark. Because if she is caught, it is not just prison. It is the tower, torture, the rack, maybe even execution. Elizabeth was no soft monarch. Traitors died in ways we are not going to describe in detail, but let us just say, you probably would not survive this bedtime adventure if it were real. And yet, she continues, mixing batter with one hand, plotting treason with the other. She becomes more than a baker. She becomes a ghost, a rumor, a flicker in the corner of your eye when someone leaves a warm muffin on a stone ledge, then walks away without looking back. Tonight, you follow that muffin. You need to know what is inside, not just pastry, a message, a name, a plan, something that could tilt the balance of power in England, something dangerous. And if you are not careful, you will end up in one yourself. You are back in that narrow London lane, still smelling like burnt lamp oil and wet wool. This time, you are not just peeking through the window. You are inside the bakery. The heat from the ovens wraps around you like a heavy quilt, and flour hangs in the air like fog. The clatter of trays, the rhythmic thump of dough being kneaded, it is almost hypnotic. At the center of it all is Mistress Ellen Bakewell. She moves like a woman who has counted every step in this kitchen 1,000 times. Her hands are quick and sure. She could probably twist a braid into a roll or disarm a man with the same motion. You watch her measure out flour, not by sight, but by memory. She stirs with a carved wooden spoon that has a tiny hawk etched into the handle. You will learn later that this spoon is part of a dead drop signal. If it is hanging by the back door, it means danger. If it is clean and upright in the copper pot, the coast is clear. Ellen is no ordinary baker, and she is no ordinary woman. She was married young to a man named Thomas Bakewell, a name that may or may not have been real. He owned the bakery first, but the neighborhood always whispered that he was a smuggler, maybe a minor spy, maybe just a very bad businessman. One winter, the oven exploded. A fire broke out. The shop survived, but Thomas did not. Some say Ellen wept for weeks. Others say they saw her quietly drag a suspicious trunk into the alley the day before it happened. Historians still argue whether she was a widow by fate or by design. Either way, she inherited the shop, rebuilt it, and made it thrive. Her muffins became legendary. They were crisp on the outside, soft in the center, and just barely sweet. The kind that made grown men sigh into their collars. Even nobility stopped by when they could sneak away from the palace. And Ellen? She leaned into the role of kind widow baker, wore plain gowns, offered extra crusts to children, always smiled, always watched, but you notice things others do not, like how she touches each muffin before packing it in a basket, not for fluffiness, but to feel the tiny cut she made in the base. How she sprinkles sugar in a pattern that is not quite random. How her apprentice, young, nervous Tom, sometimes delivers a tray to a gentleman and returns without it, empty-handed, looking 10 pounds lighter. You start to see her clients differently too. The old man with the walking stick who visits on Thursdays, you swear you saw him hiding a folded paper in his glove. The woman who claims to be a laundress, her hands are too soft, her eyes too sharp. She always leaves with a lemon muffin, and you suspect the lemon is never really the point. Ellen has rules, ironclad ones. Never deliver to the same place twice in a row. Never write down a name. Never reuse a cipher key. And never, under any circumstances, allow someone to follow you. You learn this last one the hard way when a boy from the butcher's shop tries to tail her one night. She vanishes. The boy returns the next morning with a broken shoelace and absolutely no memory of where he went. You begin to admire her brilliance. She is not just using muffins. She is orchestrating a whole edible intelligence system. Muffins are dropped off, yes, but also picked up. Codes are baked into them using tiny cuts, seeds, or scorched dots. Sometimes, messages are hidden inside preserved fruit and embedded in the batter itself. Other times, a muffin's absence is the message. If a delivery does not happen, someone is dead, or captured, or gone. And yet, to the average passerby, Ellen is just a widow with a good sponge recipe. That is the genius of it. You also start to hear her speak in riddles. A customer asks, "Will you have plum this week?" And she replies, "Only if the orchard is open by Sunday." Later, you realize that is code for whether a message drop-off will happen before the watch rotation changes at the palace. It sounds harmless. It is not. But Ellen is not alone. She has a network. One of her most trusted runners is a girl of 11 named Bess. Bess carries baskets to churchyards, market stalls, and taverns. Everyone assumes she is just another street urchin, but Bess can recite Latin, mimic accents, and according to rumor, once escaped a search by hiding in a funeral procession. There is also the apothecary, Master Cray. He supplies Ellen with ink that turns invisible under cold water, and herbs that knock out guards without leaving marks. He bakes nothing, but he tests every formula in old tea cakes. They taste terrible. Ellen sells them anyway to confuse the curious. Your role grows as you linger. One night, Ellen speaks to you directly. "If you are going to keep watching," she says, handing you a muffin, "you might as well carry something useful." Inside the muffin is a rolled strip of parchment, barely the size of your thumb. It reads, "Midnight, green door behind St. Bride's, no light." And just like that, you are no longer an observer. You are part of her game. But it is not all cloak and muffin. Ellen lives with constant fear. She is not some fearless hero. You catch her hands shaking after one delivery. You see her stay up all night after hearing a knock that never repeats. And sometimes, when she thinks no one is looking, she takes off her apron and stares at the empty chair by the fireplace, the one that used to belong to Thomas. She might not miss him, but she remembers what she lost when she started baking lies into warm dough. And then, one morning, a man walks in, tall, gaunt, with eyes like melted glass. He buys a currant muffin and leaves. No code, no drop, no message. Ellen watches him go. "He's from Walsingham," she says softly. You freeze. "The real game," she adds, "just started." You follow Ellen that night, not because she asks you to, but because you know she would never ask. She moves faster than usual, her cloak pulled tightly, feet silent, even on uneven stone. The streets of London feel narrower tonight. It is not just fog or the threat of rain. It is something heavier, something watching. You remember the man from earlier, the one with the eyes like melted glass. That sort of look stays with you. The way he never blinked, the way his fingertips lingered too long on the muffin, like he was weighing more than just flour and raisins. Walsingham's men, they are not soldiers. Not exactly. They do not wear uniforms. They wear shadows. They blend. They specialize in making traitors vanish between sunset and sunrise. And now they are sniffing around a bakery. Ellen rounds a corner, and you keep pace, staying close to walls. She ducks into a candlemaker's shop, a place you have never seen her enter before. You press to the wall outside, listening. Inside, murmurs, then laughter, then a snuff of the candle. When she emerges, she carries nothing, no basket, no bundle, but her pace slows. She looks, centered, like someone who just made a decision. You do not realize until later that she left something behind. Back at the bakery, the mood has shifted. The windows are shuttered. Tom, her apprentice, is scrubbing the counters more aggressively than usual. Even Bess sits still for once, peeling onions with a grim look like she's gutting a fish. Ellen gathers everyone close. "We change patterns starting tomorrow," she says. "No more predictable routes. No more bakery drops. Everything moves through the street cellars now. You'll memorize the new schedules before sunrise. No notes." You glance at the flour tin on the shelf. Yesterday, it held a coded map in a false bottom. Today, it is just flour. Ellen is burning everything. You wake early the next morning to catch her by the fire, burning strips of parchment one by one. Each curl of smoke smells like nutmeg, ink, and regret. "What did he want?" you finally ask. She does not look up to see whether I flinch. "And did you?" She smiles faintly. Only after he left, you learn more about Walsingham's network over the next few days. It is said he had eyes in every port, every pulpit, every pillow. He used coded letters, yes, but also bribes, blackmail, and good old-fashioned fear. His agents could be priests or prison guards, merchants or midwives. And now one of them has put Ellen on the board. Historians still argue whether she was ever actually in danger. Some say Walsingham tolerated her because she was useful, an informal channel of misinformation. Others believe he wanted her dead, but could not risk the public outcry if the beloved baker vanished too suddenly. And then there are those who think Walsingham never knew the full extent of her network until it was too late. You begin to see how wide her reach truly is. There is a chimney sweep who changes soot patterns to signal when roads are being watched, a fishmonger who oversalts one barrel when a ship captain has been compromised, even a blind beggar at Temple Bar who taps a rhythm with his cane that tells Ellen when it is safe to cross. It is not just clever, it is beautiful. A ballet of breadcrumbs and codes, dancing past danger in plain sight. But it is also exhausting. One night, Ellen collapses in the back room. Not dramatically, just slumps. You carry her to the chair by the fire, and she waves you off, muttering something about yeast ratios. You sit there as she drifts into shallow sleep, her brow furrowed, hand twitching like she is still shaping dough in her dreams. You wonder why she keeps going. It cannot be money, and it is clearly not safety. So what drives her? The next day, you find part of your answer. A letter arrives, not hidden in a muffin, but hand-delivered by a woman dressed like a washermaid. She says nothing, just places the folded note on the table and leaves. Ellen opens it, reads it twice, then sighs. You peek over her shoulder. It is a list, names. Some you recognize, some you do not, all crossed out, except one. You recognize that last one. It is the name of a priest rumored to be hiding in a barn outside Oxford. A Catholic priest. That is, dangerous. Being a Catholic in Elizabethan England is not illegal in theory, but let us just say it is very easy to disappear if someone decides you are too enthusiastic about incense and Latin. Ellen does not speak for a while. Then she looks at you and says, "I owe him." She does not explain. She does not need to. So that night, you ride with her, on horseback, no less. The roads are slick with mud. Every branch looks like a sword waiting to fall. You reach the barn just before dawn. Inside is a man in threadbare robes, his face weathered, hands shaking. He sees Ellen and tears up immediately. "You lived," he whispers. Ellen places a bundle in his hands. "It is warm. It is a muffin." He laughs. They speak in hushed tones. You do not catch much, but you hear enough to piece things together. Years ago, during the worst of the Catholic hunts, this priest saved Ellen's brother, hid him, fed him, sent him away under a false name. And now, Ellen is returning the favor. Historians still argue whether this moment changed her trajectory, whether she was always involved in political resistance, or whether it was personal all along. Either way, after this night, she starts choosing her clients differently. No more anonymous deliveries. No more games. Now, every muffin has a purpose. Every name a weight. Every step a risk. And as you ride back to London with cold wind clawing at your face, you realize something very simple and very scary. This is no longer a bedtime story. It is a war. A quiet, powdered sugar-coated war. You come home with mud on your boots and ash in your sleeves, and something else buried deeper, a sense that things are accelerating. Ellen no longer plays the passive baker. She sharpens. Her movements are tighter. Her eyes scan for watchers even while folding dough. She starts sleeping in the bakery itself, behind the sack of barley. The fire never goes out. You barely get a moment to breathe before the next twist drops. Tom, the apprentice, does not show up one morning. You wait. The clock ticks past delivery time. The sugar starts to burn in the pan. Bess kicks a stool and mutters something about him chasing a maid near Covent Garden. But Ellen knows. Her hand still. Her mouth sets in a tight line. She pulls out a roll of cloth from the spice drawer and begins wrapping a small knife in oil. "He knew 3 drop points," she says. "If they got him," you do not finish the sentence. Later that day, a man stops by. Fat, jolly voice, red cheeks. He buys 3 honey cakes and 1 sausage roll. Normal, right? Except you notice the paper beneath the tray, thin and slightly charred. Ellen slips it out with one clean motion. She opens it, a single word is scribbled. "Sparrow, you are still learning the code. But this one? This one is bad." Sparrow means someone cracked. The bird flew the wrong way. The network is exposed, partially, at least. Now it is a race. Not just to protect Ellen's people, but to wipe out everything they know, all at once, with 0 warning. Ellen begins tearing apart the bakery, not out of panic, but precision. False compartments, invisible ink caches, coded flour bags, gone. She buries 1 tin beneath the chicken co-op, burns another. Even the wooden spoon with the hawk engraving gets tossed into the hearth. "Too recognizable," she mutters. Meanwhile, she dispatches you and Bess like chess pieces. You are sent north to a tailor with 1 glass eye, in the habit of humming Spanish lullabies. You are to deliver nothing. Your presence alone will signal that the message relay is shut down. Bess is sent south, carrying 2 identical loaves. One is hollow, filled with a scrap of parchment wrapped in beeswax. The other is just bread. She is told to give the wrong one if followed, and to run if asked her name. Historians still argue whether this was the moment Ellen became fully radicalized, whether, in that brief span, she turned from message runner to resistance architect. But looking back, you realize she had already been building the revolt. She was just sweeping faster now, because the wolves were closer. A few nights later, Tom reappears. He stumbles in after dark, soaked to the skin, hair matted, eyes wide and frantic. He does not speak at first, just stands there, breathing like he ran across all of London. When he finally does talk, it is through clenched teeth. "They grabbed me," he says. "Two men, no uniform. One had a coin with a hole in it, kept flipping it, said they wanted names." You look at Ellen. She does not flinch. "I gave them wrong ones," Tom adds. "Old ones. Dead drops we do not use anymore." Ellen steps forward and places a muffin in his hand. He cries. Later that evening, once Tom has fallen asleep near the oven, you ask Ellen why she let him back in, why she did not assume the worst. She shrugs. Because he came back here, not to his parents, not to the magistrate, to me. Trust, you are learning, is Ellen's most dangerous ingredient. Things settle, but not for long, because now there are spies watching the spies. You start to spot them, men in plain tunics, too clean to be laborers, women pretending to sell flowers, but standing perfectly still for hours, a beggar with no visible scars, whose coin cup never fills. They hover near the bakery, near the candle shop, near St. Bride's, and Ellen, bless her reckless heart, starts feeding them, not with real messages, but bait. She revives the muffin network, but only partially. She sends out misleading notes, contradictory routes, fake rendezvous points. She wants them confused, exhausted, chasing shadows. One note, baked into a fig tart, leads an agent to a locked wine cellar that just so happens to be above a public house filled with radical playwrights. Another directs a courier to a seamstress who is not even part of the network, but knows enough to send him in circles all day before dropping him in a pigsty outside the city. It is espionage through carbs, a low-sugar revolution, and it works. You hear rumors, agents losing patience, Walsingham furious, interrogations ramp up, but the wrong people are questioned. The net is tightening, but around the wrong fish. Still, the danger is real. Ellen becomes more paranoid. She stops sleeping. The circles beneath her eyes darken. She starts talking to the bread dough, muttering ciphers into it, like it is a confession box. One morning, she sends Bess away, not on a mission away, for good. Gives her a purse of coins, a false name, and tells her to find a convent in the north. Bess does not cry. She just hugs Ellen tight and walks away without looking back. And then Ellen turns to you and says, "You're all I've got now." You are not ready for the weight of that. But there is no time to argue, because the next delivery, it is not just dangerous. It is explosive. A cake, dense, heavy, studded with nuts, destined for a council chamber. Ellen is sending it through a merchant who owes her. Inside, hidden beneath a layer of sugared almonds, is a scroll containing a list of Protestant lords conspiring against the Queen. But the cake has more than information. It has powder, just a small vial, enough to destroy a table, enough to kill a message if intercepted. You ask her if it is worth the risk, if one cake could really change anything. She does not answer, just places her hand on yours and says, "It is not about the cake. It is about letting them know we are not afraid to bake back." And that, oddly enough, makes sense. The cake makes it out of the bakery at sunrise, bundled in a rough sack and balanced on a cart alongside onions and salted pork. The merchant, thin, gray, and hunched from years of backdoor bartering, tips his hat and mutters something about market stalls in Lambeth. You watch him disappear down the fog-wrapped road and realize this is the most illegal pastry you have ever seen. Ellen does not relax once the cart vanishes. If anything, she coils tighter. She sends you upstairs with instructions to sort the dried herbs by month, but you hear her pacing the floorboards for hours, muttering under her breath about counterintelligence elasticity and psychological flour bombs. You are pretty sure those are not real baking terms. Then, just before noon, it happens. The bell on the door rings. A woman walks in, elegant, pale gloves, eyes like chipped quartz. "Is this the bakery with the walnut jam?" she asks, her accent soft and hard all at once. "Not from London. Not from anywhere you can place." Ellen smiles. "We have one left." They lock eyes for exactly 3 seconds. Then Ellen turns and retrieves a small tart from beneath the counter. The woman takes it, nods, leaves. You say nothing, but once the door shuts, Ellen exhales. "She's from the Netherlands," she says, or pretending to be. That was the signal. The cake got through. And then, for the first time in weeks, she laughs. Just once. Just a little. But it feels like a feast. You help her close early that day. Board the windows. Douse the lamps. It is not just about laying low. It is about controlling the silence. Because silence, you learn, can be louder than noise. It can signal strength or fear, wisdom or surrender. And Ellen wants it to say one thing. We're still here. Historians still argue whether this was the moment Ellen gained international recognition. Some believe foreign sympathizers began funding her operations after the cake episode. Others suggest it was coincidence that European agents were already operating in parallel, but the Dutch woman appears in at least 3 separate accounts, always connected to whispers of the baker who burned secrets. From then on, the muffin game shifts again. Less local, more global. Now Ellen's messages are not just bouncing between nearby parishes. They are heading for boats, slipping into satchels bound for Antwerp, Rouen, or the Low Countries. Sometimes the notes are folded into the hems of smuggled lace. Other times they are scraped into wax seals and melted back into shape. You marvel at how far a simple scoon can travel. But the scale brings new problems. One day, you return from a delivery to find the bakery ransacked, not destroyed, searched, flour scattered, drawers overturned, the sugar canisters broken open and sniffed. It is surgical, precise. No damage unless it had to be done. Whoever came was looking for something very specific. Ellen stands by the hearth, arms crossed. They didn't find it, she says. You look around. What did they miss? She pulls a brick from the wall and reveals a cavity the size of a pear. Inside, a single muffin. Cold, stale, untouched. But inside that muffin, wrapped in oiled silk, is a cipher key. They do not know how I think, Ellen says. They're still playing chess. I'm playing. Something gooier. You realize then that she hides her most dangerous secrets in the most pathetic disguises. Old bread, burned rolls, even a pie that collapsed in the middle turned out to contain one of the most damning accounts of a treasonous dinner party involving 3 nobles and a very drunk goat. Ellen does not just weaponize food. She weaponizes expectations, and that makes her lethal. But it also makes her lonely. You notice it late at night, when the fire has dimmed and the city quiets. She stares at the oven too long. Her fingers twitch like she is writing letters no one will ever read. Do you miss it? You ask one night. Before all this, she does not answer immediately. I miss sleeping without my boots on, she says, and knowing my muffins won't explode if dropped. You both laugh, but it is not a long laugh. Then, one evening, everything changes again. A coded message arrives, this time tucked beneath a strip of bacon delivered by a butcher boy. It is short, brutally short. Storm coming. Watch the west window. That night, you and Ellen stay up, eyes fixed on the bakery's west window. You see nothing, just wind, just fog, just 2 drunkards arguing over the price of ale. Then, around 3 a.m, something hits the glass. Not hard, just enough to click. You open it, find a pebble. Tied to it is a note. You have 3 days. Burn or run. No signature. Ellen reads it, says nothing, then throws the pebble back out the window. You think it's real? You ask. She shakes her head. I think it's late, and I still need to proof the rye, but her hands are shaking. For the next 2 days, you wait for something, anything, but nothing comes. No raids, no messages, no muffins even. It is the silence again, but this time, it feels wrong, like the breath before a scream. On the 3rd night, Ellen hands you a small pouch. Just in case, she says. Inside, a miniature compass, 3 coins, and a name written on a waxy scrap of linen. If I vanish, she says, go to her. She'll know what to do. You want to protest. You want to shout. But all you manage is, you're not going to vanish. She smiles. Well then, waste of a good compass. You sit by the fire that night, neither of you speaking, both listening for boots on cobblestones. And just before dawn, you hear them. The boots hit the street like a slow drum roll. 1 pair, then 3, then too many to count. You press your back to the wall, heart in your throat. Ellen does not move. She just tightens her apron and opens the bakery's front door, casually, like she is stepping out for fresh air. A man stands on the threshold, not dressed like a soldier, but something colder. Black gloves, no wig, a smooth, papery voice that makes your skin itch. Ellen Hollow, he says, not a question. That is what the sign says, she replies. He does not smile. I need to ask you some questions about your deliveries, about a certain merchant, about your muffins. Ellen blinks. Do I need a lawyer or a recipe book? He steps inside without permission. Others follow. They spread like oil, poking through barrels, lifting sackcloths, cracking open crates of ginger and cloves. You inch toward the back, slowly, quietly, but Ellen catches your eye and gives a single, infinitesimal shake of her head. Not yet. The man in gloves picks up a small loaf from the counter, squeezes it. You bake a lot, he says, and yet you never seem to sell out. That is because I make too much, Ellen answers. Or perhaps not enough, he murmurs. Then, where were you 3 nights ago? Right here, she says, burning jam and scaring the rats. He steps closer. Do you know a man named Gervis Lyle? The name lands like a slap. You do know it. So does Ellen. Gervis Lyle was a minor court official. Short, chatty, suspiciously fond of almond biscuits. 2 weeks ago, he vanished. Rumor said he had been intercepted with a tart full of ciphered coordinates headed to the coast. Ellen raises an eyebrow. Should I? No, the man says, suddenly smiling. But he knew you. And just like that, the temperature drops. They find nothing that day. No notes, no weapons, no diagrams of palace defenses baked into strudel. But the message is clear. You are on their list now. Historians still argue whether this visit was meant to intimidate or entrap. Some say the man with the gloves was not even part of Walsingham's network, but a rogue agent loyal to Burgley. Others think he was testing Ellen, watching her for cracks, waiting to see if she would fold. She did not, but something inside her shifted. After they leave, she does not speak for hours, just bakes, and bakes, and bakes. By nightfall, there are 32 muffins lined neatly on the counter. Not for sale, not for friends, for movement, each with a purpose, each carrying either a signal or silence. You help pack them. You do not ask what is inside. The network is active again, stronger, tighter. Ellen has adjusted. The routes change. The codes change. Even the bread shapes change. Round for friendly, long for danger, crescent for pause. But now, there is someone else in the system. You notice it first during a handoff at a mill near Blackfriars. A woman you have never seen before takes the muffin, nods, and leaves. New recruit? You ask Ellen later. She freezes. I sent no one to Blackfriars, which means someone is spoofing her signal. The implications are terrifying. A double, a mole, someone inserting false information into her chain. The next week is chaos. Messages contradict. Rendezvous overlap. One muffin makes it to a printer in Shoreditch with a false date for a riot. He is arrested before the ink dries. Ellen goes cold. She gathers the inner circle, what is left of it. You, Tom, a stonemason named Quince, and she tells you, we purge. Tonight, you visit every known drop point, burn notes, destroy caches, replace safe signs with danger signs. It is like poisoning your own well, but better than letting an enemy drink from it. When you return to the bakery at dawn, you are covered in soot and sweat. Ellen hands you tea and says only, Phase 2. You do not even know there was a Phase 1. Phase 2, it turns out, is simplicity. No more complex codes. No elaborate pastries. Ellen goes rustic. Brown bread with marks carved in the crust. Simple shapes. A cross, a circle, a slash. Anyone intercepting would think they are just for cooling or slicing. But each one is a signal, and no one but Ellen, and now you, knows what they mean. That week, you help deliver 5 such loaves, each to a person who greets you with a glance, a nod, or nothing at all. On the 7th day, Ellen makes a 6th loaf. She does not let you touch this one. She wraps it herself, adds an extra glaze, carves a tiny crescent in the bottom. Where's it going? You ask. Not far, she says, but very, very deep. That night, you follow her. She does not know. You move like the fog, soft-footed and silent. You watch her enter the back of a chapel through a side door. You wait. When she emerges, the bread is gone. So is the priest. The next day, an explosion rocks the east wing of a manor house near the river. No one claims it. No one talks about it. But you see Ellen wipe flour from her hands and breathe a little easier. She never confirms her involvement, but the next week, she receives a letter baked inside a pie crust. No return address. No message. Just a pressed petal from a rare Dutch tulip and a coin with a hole in it. It is not a threat. It is a thank you. You ask her who sent it. She says, an old friend with a new cause. And she smiles. That same quiet, dangerous smile that smells like cinnamon and change. You are sweeping the bakery floor, half asleep and barely listening to the sound of your own broom scratching against old crumbs, when you hear Ellen mutter, "This city stinks of lies." She is not wrong. London's air is thick, politically, olfactorily, spiritually. Every alley whispers a different rumor. The Queen is dying. The Pope is planning. The Earl of Essex is plotting something again, because of course he is. You get the sense that even the pigeons are keeping secrets. And in the middle of it all, Muffins. You and Ellen have stopped pretending that you are bakers. At least, not in the traditional sense. Sure, you make scones and rustic loaves, and whatever sweet thing seems innocent enough. But the goal has changed. The baking is the misdirection. You are not feeding mouths. You are feeding a resistance. It becomes harder to tell who is a customer and who is not. A toothless beggar might drop a silver thimble on the sill as code for enemy moving. A child might ask for the burnt corner of the pie, which actually means switch your drop point. You even see a rat, an actual rat, carrying what looks suspiciously like a message tied to its tail. That one, you later learn, was not yours. Someone else is in the game, and Ellen is not pleased. Historians still argue whether Ellen's operation was the first of its kind, or merely the best documented. Some claim others used pastries as coded messages decades earlier. Allegedly, a Viennese spy once concealed political dispatches inside poppy seed filling. but no one can match the scale, consistency, and frankly, the deliciousness of Ellen's methods. Her fame spreads, ironically, not by word of mouth, but by bite of bread. Even the queen's inner circle begins whispering about the woman with flour-stained fingers who hears everything. A few brave lords attempt to find her. Some succeed and join her quietly. Others disappear. And then, without warning, you receive your first solo assignment. Ellen hands you a parcel, heavy, warm, smells faintly of thyme and ink. "You will take this to the old theater," she says. "The one behind the livery yard." You nod. "And if anyone stops you?" You hesitate. "I offer them half," she laughs. "Good, but do not actually do that. It is laced with nightshade. Just a little." You blink. Ellen shrugs. "It was a test run. The theater is abandoned. Officially, in reality, it hums beneath the surface. A forgotten entrance behind a rotting curtain leads to a chamber below, where candles flicker and maps cover the walls. You do not speak. You just leave the parcel, as instructed, and turn to go. But someone follows you out. A boy, maybe 15, hair like wet straw, clothes too clean for his age. He catches up to you, grins. "Nice day for it, huh?" You nod cautiously. "You Ellen's?" he asks. "Her what?" "Runner." You say nothing. He smiles again. "Tell her the match is lit." And just like that, he vanishes into the fog. Back at the bakery, you deliver the message. Ellen frowns. That was not supposed to happen yet. You ask what the match means. She just sighs. It means someone else is striking before we are ready. Turns out, the Muffin Network is not the only one. There is another, parallel, looser, younger, led by actors, writers, dreamers. They call themselves the stagehands. Their methods are sloppier. Their signals more dramatic, literal flaming torches are involved. But they have passion, and spies love passion. It is easy to exploit. Ellen reaches out, sends a muffin, sweetened this time, with orange peel and a crumbly top. It contains a note, of course, but also a tiny painted card, a harlequin mask. You ask what it means. It means, let us talk, not burn things. A meeting is arranged, not face to face. Too risky. Instead, a series of baked exchanges. One loaf contains questions. The return tart holds answers. A pie crust offers a suggested plan. A turnover replies with, too bold. It is like playing chess by pastries. Eventually, they reach a truce. Ellen agrees to support their intelligence work. The stagehands agree to tone down the fireballs. But the most important result? You are not alone anymore. Suddenly, everything has threads. You see patterns. A coded recipe in a pamphlet. A string of words hidden in a sonnet performed at an inn. Even graffiti on a latrine wall might be part of a bigger conversation. You realize the city is alive with secrets. London is not just the stage, it is the script. But scripts, like ovens, can be unpredictable. One morning, the Queen falls ill. Not a cough, not a faint. Something worse. The court locks down. The Privy Council begins preparing for the worst. And in the silence that follows, people begin to panic. Not openly, of course. That would be unseemly. But you see it in their eyes. Every noble suddenly looks at every other noble like a possible successor or a possible executioner. Factions scramble. Information becomes priceless. And Ellen? She starts baking like her life depends on it. Because maybe it does. The queen kept us in balance, she says one night. No successor means chaos. And in chaos, the wrong people thrive. You ask who the wrong people are. She hands you a muffin. The ones who sell lies and call them truths. Who bake poison and call it cake. The muffin tastes like cinnamon, but you are suddenly unsure. That week, Ellen begins a new recipe. You do not know what is in it. She works on it alone after hours, muttering about narrative shaping and symbolic starch content. You suspect she is inventing terms again. Then one night, she brings you a finished one. Small, dense, topped with a single candied rose petal. This, she says, is going to change everything. And the next morning, she disappears. The bakery is too quiet. You notice it first thing. No humming, no flour dust, no clanging of tins or muttered complaints about eggs. Just the clock ticking, loudly, like it has grown teeth. You check the back room, empty. The alley behind, still empty. You ask the butcher across the lane if he has seen Ellen. He shrugs. Off on a flour run? But Ellen never runs out of flour. She hoards it like secrets. You wait 1 hour, 2. Then you see it. The candied rose muffin left neatly in the window. The same one she showed you. The one she said would change everything. It is not for sale. It is a signal. You take it gently, like it might explode, and slice it in half. Inside, baked right into the center, a thin sheet of dried apple skin. On it, faint writing in edible ink. One line. Play ends. Curtain down, exit left. Not her usual flair. No code names. No drop point. Just a metaphor. You stare at it for too long. What curtain? What play? And what does exit left even mean in a city with no stage directions? You scour the bakery for clues. Nothing. No burned parchment. No flowery footprints. No stray buttons or spilled sugar to tell you which way she went. Except the oven is still warm, which means she left recently, and possibly not by choice. Historians still argue whether Ellen Hollow was taken, or whether she chose to vanish before the storm broke. Some suggest she was compromised, forced to disappear to protect the network. Others insist she went underground voluntarily, preparing for a greater move. No one knows for sure, but you cannot afford uncertainty. You close the bakery early, draw the shutters, lock the doors. Then, using a trick Ellen taught you, you flip the pastry rack against the wall to reveal a hollow behind the bricked-in fireplace. Inside, a small chest. You have never opened it before. She told you to wait. Only if I go fully crust side down, she once joked. You will know. You know now. Inside, you find a rolled parchment map of London, heavily marked with tiny cuts and folds, some of them in the shapes of pastries, a silk pouch of silver coins, each with a different date scratched faintly into one side, a blue ribbon tied in a triple knot. No note, a second muffin untouched, and finally, at the bottom, a letter. You unfold it, her writing, fast, slanted, impatient. If you are reading this, I have either been taken, or I have moved one step ahead of those who would like to take me. Either way, it is your oven now. The network must continue. The muffins still matter, but we need to shift the recipe. Too many eyes, too much heat. The bread is burning, and we are running out of butter. Use the map. Trust no one wearing gloves. And remember, exit left always means the river. Yours in crumbs. B. You sit in silence for a long time. Then you spread the map on the counter. Exit left, the river, and suddenly it clicks. You cross-reference the folds. One marked with a lemon tart, another with a fig bun. Then you find it, a small X near the wharves, just beside a symbol you have never seen before, 2 crossing spoons. You go. You wear a hood, carry nothing but a stale roll in your pocket, half for comfort, half in case you need to bribe a dog. The wharves are loud, crowded, ships groan, vendors yell. You walk slowly, watch the symbols on the crates. Finally, tucked between 2 stacked barrels of salted fish, you spot it, the cross spoons, marked in chalk. You wait, 30 seconds, nothing. You knock, once, a panel in the side shifts. A man peeks out, gray beard, eye patch. He looks at you, then at the roll in your pocket. Olive? He asks. You nod. He opens the door. Inside, it is dark and damp. Smells of seaweed and yeast. But on a makeshift shelf, loaves, dozens of them, and on a crate, a familiar sight, Ellen's handwriting, scrawled on a torn bit of parchment. You trace it with your finger. She was here, the man grunts. Left this morning, said to expect you. What is this place? He shrugs. A new oven. You grin despite yourself. Back at the bakery, you begin reorganizing. You cannot run both ends alone, but you can adapt. The muffin signals simplify. You teach new helpers, quiet ones, clever ones. Ellen's recipes become gospel. You treat her notes like scripture. And slowly, the network reforms. Stronger, leaner. You hear whispers, of course, that she has been seen in Bruges or Constantinople, or working under another name in a Dutch marzipan shop. No proof, just crumbs. But once, a month later, you receive a muffin with a rose petal, slightly wilted. Inside, a single silver coin with a new date scratched in. Tomorrow's. At night, you do not sleep. Instead, you bake. You rise before the sun, apron already dusted with flour from the night before. You can barely feel your hands from kneading. But your mind is sharp enough to remember that coin with tomorrow's date. Silver, scratched in a slanted style Ellen always used when she meant urgent. You know what that means. Something is about to happen. You recheck the list. Not a literal list, of course. That would be foolish. But a mental one, etched in your skull from months of running the network. The boatman by Blackfriars is expecting a raisin loaf with a cracked top. The washerwoman on Creechurch Lane wants a honey bun with precisely 8 almond slivers. And today, for the first time in weeks, the Lord Chamberlain's servant is due for a delivery. The muffins must be perfect, but the one that matters most is the smallest. A dainty poppy seed number. Looks harmless. Tastes surprisingly tangy if you are not expecting the lemon. It will go to a contact whose name you have never learned, only that they whistle a tune from the Spanish tragedy when they pass the bakery. Today, you hear the tune. The man is tall, long coat, carries himself like someone who could either recite poetry or stab you in an alley. Possibly both. He gives no greeting, just places a half-farthing on the windowsill and nods. You place the muffin gently on the counter. He vanishes. Historians still debate what message that poppy seed muffin carried. Some suggest it contained a cipher directing the Queen's loyalists to intercept a traitor at sea. Others argue it triggered the quiet dismantling of a Catholic cell operating out of Norwich. There's even a theory that it merely confirmed a larger operation had succeeded somewhere far from London. But you never know. That is how it works now. You are the middle layer, the buffer. You bake, you signal, you guess, and one day, that guessing nearly gets you killed. It starts innocently. A new customer, young, nervous, hands you a note folded inside a crusty rye. No signal, no code, just fear. The note says, they know. 2 days. Clear your flour. You read it 3 times. Then burn it. You check the alley, the rooftops. Nothing. Still, you trust it. That night, you clear out the back room. You move what records you can to the wharf drop point. You send quiet warnings to your contacts, mostly through bread that's a little too stale, a sign to halt all operations. By morning, the bakery feels eerily bare. And then, the knock. 2 men, unsmiling, wearing gloves. Remember what Ellen said? Trust no one in gloves. They claim to be city inspectors. They say someone reported tainted flour. They want to search the premises. You nod politely. Then, accidentally, knock a tray of uncooked batter onto one of their shoes. It buys you just enough time to slip into the alley. You run, down the lane, around the corner, up the side street where the cobbler never opens before noon. And there, by the drain pipe, your backup exit. You escape through soot and shadows, coughing and shaking, but safe. You do not return to the bakery for 3 days. When you do, it has been turned upside down. Everything tossed, bins overturned, shelves broken, but no one stayed. And miraculously, they missed the secret hearth panel. Inside the hollow, a fresh muffin. It is not yours. You did not bake it, but you would recognize the crimped edge anywhere. Ellen, inside, wrapped in wax paper, a note. You did well. They were not after you, but they used you to find me. I slipped them, but we are almost out of flour and time. We move to whispers now. Burn the shop. You sit with that instruction for an hour, maybe longer. Then you light the first match. You are careful, methodical. You make sure the bakery goes quickly, but not dangerously. No neighboring buildings harmed, just yours gone. A smoldering wreck by sunrise. London assumes a kitchen fire. The neighbors bring sympathy, pies, warm wishes. No one questions it, but you are already gone. You take to moving between safe houses. Sometimes you sleep in a root cellar. Sometimes in a church crypt no one uses anymore. You use chalk to signal when it is safe to talk. Bread becomes your voice. Loaves, your language. It becomes a different kind of baking. Covert, smaller batches, pre-arranged pickup spots. A muffin placed under a park bench. A tart balanced precariously on a windowsill in Covent Garden. Even among spies, your methods gain legend. You start hearing the phrase, baked intelligence. It is ridiculous. You secretly love it. A fringe rumor floats through taverns and kitchens that a rogue group of actors and bakers, mostly women, run a shadow communication network more efficient than the Crown's own. Some call it the crumb line. Others, the East Ring. You prefer the Muffin Men. Even as your identity remains hidden, your influence grows. You pass warnings that prevent 3 assassination attempts. You reroute a Protestant printer before he is arrested. You learn to recognize the tiny burn mark in crust that means, do not trust the man in blue. And then, weeks later, a turn. A small package arrives at your new safe kitchen. Inside, folded in cloth, another muffin. But this one is different. It is your recipe, the one you designed. Cinnamon orange crumble with dried ginger core. You open it carefully. Inside, a coin. This one is gold. No scratches, no date. Just a small indentation on one side, the shape of a crown. You know what it means. Someone in the palace knows you exist, and they want a meeting. You feel the weight of the gold coin in your palm, as if it were a living thing, warm, heavy, and brimming with possibility. A palace seal, discreet yet unmistakable. An invitation wrapped in mystery. No note, no instructions, just the coin. A silent summons from the heart of power itself. Your thoughts swirl like flour in a mixing bowl. Who in the palace could this be? The Lord Chamberlain, the spy master, or perhaps even someone closer to the Queen herself? Trust is a luxury you cannot afford. Yet this gesture feels deliberate, calculated. Historians still argue whether this kind of direct contact between commoner spies and nobility was typical or a rare anomaly. Some say it was a desperate act in desperate times. Others insist it was part of an elaborate dance played out in shadows. You decide to accept. The meeting place is an unassuming tavern near Whitehall, the kind where the smell of stale ale and burning wood mingle freely, and no one pays attention to a hooded figure slipping in after dark. You arrive early, your senses alive with every creak of floorboards and murmur from shadowed corners. You know better than to trust the tavern's eyes. So you sit near the hearth, nursing a cup of watered-down ale. Minutes stretch. Then, a figure approaches, tall, with sharp eyes that seem to see right through you. Their voice is low, calm, with a faint accent that places them somewhere between London and the continent. I am called Walsingham, they say. You nod. Sir Francis Walsingham, the Queen's principal secretary and spy master, the man reputed to have eyes everywhere. He places a small, sealed parchment on the table. Your network has proven invaluable. Your methods, ingenious. The Queen herself has taken note. You feel a flutter of disbelief. Praise from the highest office? But, he continues, the game changes. Catholic plots thicken. Foreign powers press in. We need your network more than ever. Yet, we must be more careful. They have moles even in the kitchens. You realize the stakes have escalated. Walsingham outlines a plan. Tighter codes, fewer deliveries, new disguises. He requests your assistance in spreading disinformation, feeding false leads through your baked goods to mislead the enemy. You agree. Before leaving, he presses something into your hand. A tiny vial filled with a clear liquid. Keep this close. If ever caught, one drop on your tongue will ensure silence. A grim reminder of the dangerous line you walk. You leave the tavern with a new mission and the heavy weight of responsibility. The city's fate, it seems, rests on crumbs and whispers. Back at your hidden kitchen, you begin crafting new recipes. Each muffin, each tart, a message coded in spices and shapes. You perfect the art of double meanings. A sprinkle of nutmeg indicating safe, a swirl of berry jam warning danger. You think about Ellen. Her disappearance has left a void, but her spirit guides your hands. One evening, a curious visitor arrives, a playwright known for his sharp wit and subtle satire. He claims to want to help. His scripts, he says, carry hidden messages that could be sewn into your bakery's network. You hesitate, but the arts and espionage have always been strange bedfellows. Together, you weave stories into pies, allegories into loaves. London's underground pulses with this new rhythm. Yet danger is never far. One night, you find a small dagger tucked beneath a batch of freshly baked rolls. A clear warning. Someone knows. Someone watches. And the city waits, breath held, for the next move. The dagger is a cold, sharp reminder pressed into your palm, like the city itself biting down on you. It carries no name, no message, just the unmistakable meaning. Watch your back. You tuck it away in the folds of your cloak and consider your options. Paranoia is a loyal companion now. Every shadow could hide a foe. Every friendly face a traitor. You start using a new tactic, leaving decoy muffins, beautifully baked, dripping with honey or studded with currants, but empty inside. No message, no secrets, just crumbs of deception. One day, you spot a young boy loitering near the alley where you meet contacts. He watches the bakery with keen eyes, hands always twitching near his belt. You recognize him from the market, an apprentice to a glove maker known for working with the city's spies. You approach carefully. Looking for work? You ask. He nods eagerly. You decide to recruit him. Over weeks, he becomes your courier. Small, fast, able to disappear into crowds like mist. You teach him the muffin code, the scents, the shapes. His favorite is a cinnamon swirl that means all clear. The boy is quick, but the world is faster. One evening, he returns pale, breathless. "They're on to us," he whispers. The man in blue gloves, the one Ellen warned about, is here. You realize your warning about gloves was not just superstition. The city's spies are tightening their nets. You prepare for a dangerous game. At night, you meet with Walsingham again, this time in a quiet garden maze near the palace. He advises cutting the network in half, so if one side falls, the other remains. You agree, but it hurts. Your bakery, your people, your friends, they will be divided. But survival means sacrifice. You craft 2 sets of muffin recipes, one for each half, each batch coated with new symbols. A pinch of rosemary for split, a dusting of powdered sugar for hide. The boy helps you deliver the messages, darting through the streets like a shadow. You sense the walls closing in. Then, the unexpected happens. A Catholic sympathizer approaches you in secret, claiming to have vital information. They bring news of a planned arrest, a major crackdown on the network. You weigh the risk. Do you trust this stranger? Historians still debate whether infiltration was the network's downfall or its savior. Some argue the spies were undone by betrayal. Others claim they survived because of clever double agents. You decide to believe. You bake a muffin with a note hidden in its crumb. Escape at dawn. The network moves quickly. At first light, safe houses are emptied. Contacts vanish into the mist. You barely escape yourself, slipping through narrow alleys to a waiting boat on the Thames. As the city wakes, the network breathes a momentary sigh, but the hunt is far from over. You know the game will continue, and that every crumb matters. You sit on the wooden bench of the small boat, watching London's skyline blur into a watercolor of grays and oranges as the sun edges up. The Thames carries you away, like a secret whispered through time. But even as the city recedes, the weight in your chest does not. You clutch the worn bag with your remaining supplies, flour, sugar, a few precious spices, and the memory of every face you left behind. The river's mist is cold against your skin. You pull your cloak tighter. The boatman says little, but his eyes flicker with understanding. He has heard whispers of your muffin messages and the shadow war playing out beneath the city's glittering surface. You think he might even admire the cleverness it takes to bake secrets into bread. You are headed north, far from the Queen's spies, the Catholic plots, and the relentless game of shadows. But exile is its own kind of prison. In your new hiding place, a small village near the coast, you open a modest bakery. No elaborate codes, no secret signals, just honest bread for honest folk. Yet, old habits die hard. You find yourself baking muffins with hidden letters, slipping tiny notes into pastries for the locals, warnings about soldiers, messages for fishermen, even the occasional recipe for a better loaf. Word spreads. Your reputation as the baking spy lingers, even here. One day, a traveler arrives, a messenger from London, breathless and wary. They bring news. The network has not died. It thrives quietly in the hands of new bakers, new hands, new voices. You feel a pang of pride and sadness. Pride for the network's survival, sadness for those who carry the risk now. The traveler hands you a new code, a pattern of berries and nuts to signal emergencies. You realize your role is far from over. You begin training local apprentices in the art of coded baking, teaching them the subtle cues, the slight burn on a muffin's edge, the unusual twist in a pastry's shape that could mean life or death. You remember Ellen's words, the gold coin, Walsingham's vial, trust, danger, sacrifice. The village becomes your new home and your new front. Historians still debate whether the Muffin Network truly influenced the fate of the Elizabethan era, or if it was simply a charming footnote lost beneath grander plots. You do not care. You know what it meant for those who lived it. Each muffin you bake is a story, a secret, a hope. And as you knead dough in the quiet morning light, you smile. Because sometimes the smallest things carry the greatest power. You have settled into a rhythm, but your mind is never truly at rest. The art of espionage runs through your veins. Even in the quiet village bakery, your apprentices are eager, though a little clumsy. One mistook a secret code for a shopping list and nearly caused a panic with a batch of urgent muffins. You laugh to yourself. Such mistakes are part of the game. One morning, a letter arrives, delivered by a rider cloaked in dust and haste. The seal is unfamiliar, but the message inside sends a shiver down your spine. An urgent plea: the Queen's forces have uncovered a new Catholic plot, more dangerous than before. The network must mobilize again. Your help is needed. You know returning to London is dangerous, but the cause is bigger than fear. You begin to prepare. Packets of flour mixed with coded messages, secret rendezvous points, and a new series of muffin recipes that double as signals. The cinnamon swirl now means rally, while a dash of clove means retreat. Historians still argue whether this particular plot was ever truly foiled, or if it simply faded beneath the weight of time. You do not care about history books. You care about survival. Before leaving, you teach your apprentices a new trick, embedding messages in the crust of pies using tiny symbols pressed with special stamps. A crescent moon means all clear. A star means danger ahead. You think about the playwright who once helped you weave stories into baked goods. You wonder if he, too, is still out there, weaving words into the fabric of this secret war. Back in London, the city pulses with tension. You slip into the shadows once more, your hands steady despite the fear. The bakery you used before is long gone, but the network survives in whispers and crumbs. Your old contacts greet you with relief and new information. Together, you work to outsmart those who hunt you. Every muffin, every tart becomes a lifeline. One night, you receive a gift, a freshly baked muffin with a delicate rose petal pressed into the top. Inside, a note. You are not alone. A simple message, but enough to keep you going. The city may be dangerous, the stakes high, but the game continues. And so do you. You move through London's streets like a ghost, a shadow slipping between the bustle of merchants and the chatter of taverns. The city has changed, yet some things remain. The clatter of horse hooves on cobblestone, the pungent smell of smoke and cooking fires, and the ever-watchful eyes of those who would see you fall. Your muffin messages are now a lifeline for dozens of spies, informants, and sympathizers. The code has evolved. Cloves, cinnamon, and nutmeg are joined by unusual ingredients like caraway seeds and rosewater. Each flavor, each sprinkle, a secret letter or phrase. You feel the weight of history on your shoulders. The Queen's reign is fragile, and every crumb you send carries the potential to tip the balance. One evening, while delivering a batch to a trusted contact, you overhear a conversation in the tavern. Men in heavy cloaks discuss a mysterious muffin courier and their clever code. The risk of discovery grows. You decide to up your game. Working with a small group of allies, you begin experimenting with invisible ink made from fruit juices, blackberries, currants, applied to parchment hidden inside the pastries. The notes reveal not just warnings, but instructions for counterintelligence operations. You wonder how many spies in history have used food as a vehicle for secrets. Historians still argue whether Elizabethan spies relied more on coded letters or face-to-face betrayal. But you know the truth lies somewhere in the crumbs. One night, a new ally arrives, an apothecary with knowledge of herbs and poisons. They offer a tincture that can erase ink instantly, and a powder that reveals hidden messages under candlelight. Together, you refine your methods, making the muffin network more resilient. But danger lurks in unexpected places. A young apprentice is caught smuggling a coded muffin and dragged before a tribunal. The tension in the courtroom is thick, and you fear the worst. Yet, through a mixture of cunning, forged documents, and sheer luck, the apprentice is released. The ordeal shakes the network, but strengthens your resolve. You realize the fight is not just for the Queen, but for survival itself. The bakery has become a battlefield, and you, its quiet warrior. You sit by a dimly lit hearth, the scent of toasted almonds mingling with the flicker of candlelight. Outside, the city holds its breath. Inside, you plot the next move in this endless game of secrets and survival. The apothecary's tinctures and powders have transformed your work, but the stakes have never been higher. Each muffin you bake could mean life or death for someone across the city, someone hidden in the crowd or locked away in a dank cell. You think of Ellen and the boy courier, faces that blur in memory, but whose courage burns bright. A new challenge emerges. A rival faction within the Catholic plotters is also using baked goods to send messages. Their codes are similar but twisted, designed to mislead and sabotage your network. Historians still debate how much of the espionage was double-cross and how much was desperation. You live it every day. You devise a clever counter, adding subtle clues in the shapes of your muffins. A small notch on the side means false, while a heart shape means truth. Training your apprentices in these subtle nuances becomes a daily ritual. You also expand your network beyond London, reaching coastal towns and inland villages. Messages baked into pies, loaves, and even simple biscuits travel through markets and fairs. One day, you receive word of a planned assassination attempt on a key figure loyal to the Queen. The network must act fast. You bake dozens of muffins, each containing coded warnings and instructions. They are delivered by your fastest couriers, who risk everything to spread the word. The attempt is thwarted. Your network has saved a life, a rare victory in a dangerous war. But the cost weighs heavy. You know that for every life saved, another hangs in the balance, and that the game, like the muffins you bake, is never truly finished. You find yourself standing at a crossroads, both literally and figuratively, as dusk settles over the city. The air is thick with the scent of burning wood and spices, familiar now like an old friend. Your network has grown, stretching its tendrils into corners of the kingdom you once thought unreachable. And with growth comes risk. Your enemies are clever, sometimes cruel, and always watching. A new threat emerges, an informant, a double agent hiding among your trusted apprentices. The suspicion gnaws at you like a persistent rat. You begin subtle tests, coded messages with deliberate errors, secret signals embedded in muffins with tiny variations in baking time. The traitor reveals themselves, but not before they cause damage. Secrets leaked, contacts arrested. You feel the sting of betrayal deeply. Yet, resilience defines you. You reorganize, tighten security, and purge the network of those who cannot be trusted. You teach your apprentices the art of silence, the importance of trust, and the power of subtlety. Historians still argue whether betrayals like this sealed the fate of many Elizabethan plots, or whether they spurred innovation in espionage techniques. Your experience suggests both. Despite the losses, the network adapts. You introduce new codes, combinations of spices, and shapes so intricate they become a language of their own. You experiment with baked goods beyond muffins, fruitcakes, pasties, even savory pies, all potential vessels for secrets. One evening, you meet with an emissary from France. They bring news of shifting alliances and new dangers on the horizon. The game expands beyond England's borders. Your network is no longer just a city's secret. It is part of a larger, continental struggle. You smile, tired but determined, because even in a world of shadows, a single crumb can light the way. You wake one morning to the distant sound of church bells ringing, an ominous toll that echoes through the still air. News arrives. A major crackdown is underway, a sweep through London's underbelly targeting your network and all who might even whisper its name. Your instincts scream, move fast, stay hidden, protect the apprentices and couriers. You begin baking messages that are shorter, more urgent. You simplify the codes, relying on gestures and delivery times rather than complex spices. Every minute counts. Your apprentices scatter, each carrying a vital crumb of information across the city. You recall the history lessons, how the Babington plot unraveled thanks to intercepted letters. Historians debate whether the spies' codes were broken or if betrayal was the fatal flaw. You know that the truth is tangled in shadows. You organize safe houses, secret cellars where messages are buried beneath sacks of flour and barrels of ale. The network is tested like never before. One night, you barely escape a raid, ducking into the sewers beneath the city with nothing but your cloak and a small sack of muffins. The damp darkness presses in, but your resolve is stronger. You emerge hours later, covered in grime, but unbroken. The Queen's reign depends on the delicate balance of secrets and lies, and you are a linchpin. You bake a final batch that night, infusing each muffin with a message of hope, resilience, and the promise of survival. Because even when the world seems intent on tearing you apart, there is strength in the smallest acts. And in the end, that might just be enough. You find yourself once again in the quiet village by the sea, a place where the salt air mingles with the smell of fresh baked bread. The chaos of London feels like a distant storm, one you have weathered, but do not wish to face again too soon. Yet the war of secrets is not finished. New apprentices arrive, eager, wide-eyed, but untested. You see in them a reflection of your younger self, hopeful but wary. You teach them the muffin code with patience and care. You show them how to hide messages not just in pastries, but in the rhythm of a baker's routine. The way dough is kneaded, the timing of the oven's heat. You share stories of your journeys, from shadowed London alleys to quiet coastal towns. You speak of friends lost and found, of betrayal and trust. The apprentices listen, hanging on every word. One day, a visitor arrives, an aged scholar with a keen interest in your work. He brings books, maps, and a proposal to document the network's secrets, not for fame, but for posterity. You hesitate. History can be a double-edged sword. Yet, you agree. Together, you begin recording the muffin codes, the recipes, the tales of courage and cunning. Historians still argue whether such networks ever truly mattered in the grand sweep of history, or if they are charming footnotes, overshadowed by kings and battles. But you know the truth lies in the lives touched and the secrets saved. And in this quiet place, you feel a rare peace. The muffins you bake now carry not just messages of warning, but stories of survival and hope. And as you watch the sun set over the waves, you realize that even in the smallest crumb lies a legacy. The years stretch ahead like a long, winding road, and you find yourself a quiet legend among the villagers and spies alike. The Muffin Network has become more than a means of passing notes. It is a symbol of resilience, wit, and quiet rebellion. You hear whispers from afar. The political tides are shifting, new faces rising to power, and the age of Elizabeth is drawing to a close. But your network endures, adapting to each new threat and opportunity. Your apprentices now lead the network's branches in distant towns, each carrying the secret muffin code like a treasured heirloom. You reflect on your journey, from the bustling streets of London to this peaceful village, how flour, sugar, and a pinch of daring changed the course of many lives. You think of the countless messages folded into dough, of the bravery behind each delivery, and of the trust that binds a secret shared in a simple pastry. Historians still debate the true impact of the Elizabethan spy networks. Some say they shaped history. Others dismiss them as clever distractions. But you know better. You smile softly, your hands dusted with flour, as you bake your final batch of coated muffins, each one a quiet message to the future. Because secrets have a way of surviving in crumbs and stories, in whispers and shadows. And sometimes, the smallest gestures hold the greatest power. The sun sets gently over the village as you knead dough one last time, feeling the familiar texture beneath your fingers, a connection to a lifetime of secrets and stories. The scent of baking muffins fills the air, warm and comforting, a quiet rebellion against the darkness that once threatened to engulf you. You think back on your journey, the coded messages, the narrow escapes, the friends and foes, the relentless dance of trust and betrayal. Each muffin was more than just bread. It was hope, warning, courage folded into flour and spice. Your apprentices have grown into capable agents, carrying the legacy forward in whispers and crumbs across the land. The network you helped build is a living thing now, breathing through the hands and hearts of many. Outside, the village settles into a calm evening. You hear the distant call of a nightingale and the soft rustle of leaves in the breeze. For a moment, the world feels still, safe, even. Historians may never know the full story, and debates will continue about the true impact of your muffin code. But you do not need their approval. You have lived the story. You smile as you place the last batch of muffins in the basket, ready to send out one final message, an unspoken promise that the fight for truth, justice, and survival endures in the smallest, most unexpected places. As the night deepens, you close the bakery door, turning off the lamps and letting the silence settle. Your heart is light, your purpose clear, because sometimes the greatest stories are told not with swords or crowns, but with crumbs and courage. Now, slow your breath. Feel the softness of the night wrapping around you. Let the quiet calm carry you gently toward rest, knowing that every secret you hold is safe, tucked away in the warmth of a humble muffin. Sweet dreams.